we're starting Pasha Shmos, Sefer Shmos, and there was a great Goyen who, as a matter of fact, was the Rabbi, the teacher of the Rogatchover, and his name was the Nitziv. Nitziv is an acronym for Naftali, Tzvi, Yehuda, Berlin. This is a famous, illustrious family. He had two sons that became very, very famous. One was Rabbi Chaim Berlin, who was the Rav of Moscow and then became Rav in Yerushalayim. And there's a great yeshiva in the United States that's named after him. And the other one became more of a political personality, Reb Meir Berlin, who was a very active leader in the religious Zionist movement and changed his name when he came to Israel to a name that you all know, Bar Ilan. And there are other things from car services to universities that are named after him, and streets. Nitziv, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, writes really an amazing find. Before Rashi, before the Rambam, one of the first Sfarim written after the Talmud was the Bahag. Bahag stands for Baal Halachas Gedolos. It was written in the period of the Gaonim. That's before the Rishonim, after the Amoraim. So let's talk about in the 10th century, 1,000+ years ago. The Bahag has a listing of the 5 books of the Torah. Bereshis, Sefer Sheni, Vayikra, Bamidbar Devarim. Or, second, I should say it this way better. Bereshis has I won't call it a nickname, but it has another modifying name, Sefer Habriya, the book of creation. Vayikra is called Torah's Kahanim, the laws that apply very much to the Beis HaMikdash and the Kahanim. Bamidbar is Chumash HaPikudim, the book in which there are countings of the Jewish people. Devarim is Mishnah Torah. Shmos. A good name for Shmos would be Sefer HaGeula, and that's how the Ramban calls it, the book of redemption, because in Shmos there's Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now listen to this. The Bahag lists Sefer Habriya. He lists Torah's Kohanim, Chumash HaPikudim. He lists Mishnah Torah, all the things I mentioned before. But not like the Ramban. He doesn't call Shmos Sefer HaGeula. He calls Shmos Sefer Sheni, the second book. That means you took a different route. So then Bereshis should be Sefer Rishon, the first book. Vayikra should be Sefer Shlishi. Bamidbar should be Sefer Revi. Pick your mode. Are you going numerically? Then I understand why there's a Sefer Sheni. Are you going characteristically? Then call it Sefer Geula. That's the question that's asked. And then Siv answers something that's brilliant. He said, Sefer Habriya, it can't end at the end of Vayechi, because the raison d'etre, the reason for the existence of the world, was for the giving of the Torah. So how did Bria end before the Torah was given? We're ending with a story with Yosef and his brothers, and we're not yet down in Mitzrayim, deep into slavery yet. So we're before the Shibud Mitzrayim. We're before Yitzias Mitzrayim. We're before Matan Torah. How could you say the Bria is over? This was the reason, the raison d'etre of the Bria. And it didn't happen yet. So therefore, the meaning of Sefer Sheni doesn't mean the second book of Moses. It means part 2 of Bereshis. Bereshis is the book of creation, part 1. Now we have part 2, because creation did not end until the cause, the need for creation, the purpose of creation was actualized. And it was only actualized after Matan Torah, way in the middle of Shmos. And therefore the Bahag calls it Sefer Sheni. Why to me, between what the Rogatchover says about Yosef's ability to be swear a nation that right now doesn't exist. We're not a nation. Where I once saw a great line. I think Lahavdil, I think it belongs to George Will, the famous columnist. He was remarking about how all anti-disestablishmentarists, all the people who were against, he was talking about in the 60s, all the anti-war people, the Woodstock generation, all of that. He said, if you're rebelling, then you should all be individual. How come they all look alike and behave alike in their rebellion? So it's like having a uniform of contrarians. What's the pshat? So he came up with the phrase, I thought it was great. They're a herd of individuals. Before Matan Torah, if I could borrow that term, but not in the pejorative, we were a herd, but of individuals. My connection to you was a handshake, was by mutual consent, but not by law. Once the Torah was given, we became brothers. I want to share a story with you. I had the honor and the privilege of telling this story once before to a different group of young men under the umbrella of Ohr Somayach, but in New York, in my shul. There was a great, brilliant rabbi who was the chief rabbi of Antwerp. His name was Reb Chaim Kreisworth. The yeshiva in Yerushalayim, not far from us, Torah's Chaim, is named after him, Reb Chaim Kreisworth. Reb Chaim Kreisworth was a true genius and one of the great Talmudic scholars of our time. I heard this from him. He was once diagnosed, I believe it was with cancer, and his prognosis was, so he went to the Stipler, Reb Chaim Kanievsky's father, who was the Gadol Hador in his time, and he asked him for a bracha. And the Stipler gave him a bracha, but he also said to him, I want to give you an idea how to stay alive. And he told him to collect hachnasas kala, raise money for poor brides, which he did. He was very successful. He did it for the next 25 years. It worked. And when he asked the Stipler, what's the secret? He says, well, we say it every morning, the Mishnah and Peah. What do we say? We say, Bika Chaylim, Hachnasas Kala, Ulavayis Hameis. So you see the thing that blocks between Bika Chaylim and Lavayis Hameis, between illness and funeral, is Hachnasas Kala. Stick with that and you will block the two. So he traveled the world to raise money for Kalas. One day, someone approaches him and says his daughter is very, very poor. He's very poor. He's making a wedding. I hear you have money for these causes. Can you help me? He says, sure. Tell me your name. He asked him all the facts. He gave him his name. He says, 1 second. With his brilliant mind, I once experienced it. I once gave him a car ride. He said, I need your phone number. I want to call you up tomorrow about something. So I said, okay. I was driving, and I handed him my pen. And he said, I don't need a pen. Just tell me your phone number. This is what he did. I'll tell you the phone number. I lived by my parents then. 718-851-5461. He stopped 718. Listen to this. I have to find the Masechta. 7-1 is Daf Ayin Aleph. 5-4. 7-1, 8-5 is Daf Pei Hey. I have to find the Masechta with those numbers, those pages, speak about the same topic. Shabbos, Tumah. Next morning he called me. That's the kind of mind he had. This happened with me. It's not anyhow, so when the person told him his name, he said, "One second, would you be related to so-and-so?" He goes, "Yes." "And weren't they related to so-and-so?" He says, "Yes, but there's nothing left of the family." He said, "Only you?" He said, "Me." Put his hand in his pocket, and he pulled out a clump of papers. I said, "These are yours." He said, "What is it?" "These are yours." As we were trying to escape during the war, there was an old man who came over to me and said, "Young man, you might survive if I don't." These are my documents for my safe deposit box in Switzerland. If I survive, give it back to me, and if I don't, find my next of kin. I'm traveling 40 years, 25 years, 40 years since the war. I found no one as close a relative as you are. It's for you. The man went to Switzerland, and between the insurance policies, documents that were in the safe deposit box, and whatever else was in there, he walked away with $11 million. Rav Kreisler told to me. And then he asked the question, being in London. This man is now a newly discovered millionaire. Did he become a millionaire now, or was he always a millionaire? Lamai nafkamina. You could be a millionaire and not know that you are. He said he was always a millionaire. He just didn't know it because he didn't have access. Rabbi say, I shared with you a Rogatchover and a Nitziv. The Rogatchover says that we're all connected, glued together in a way that's inextricable, and it happened at Matan Torah. And the Nitziv told us that Matan Torah is the moment in which creation ended because that was the purpose of it. So the purpose of the creation of the world was to create a Torah for the Jewish people, which creates a Jewish people. Maybe you didn't know it before you came to Ohr Somayach, but Rabbi Kreisworth told us that you're millionaires even if you don't know it. So whatever you didn't know before you came here, whatever I don't know before I start learning on my daily portion, doesn't mean it's not mine. It means I just didn't have access to it because of whatever reason, but it's mine. The Torah is yours. The Torah says you are hers. You're bound together. Each one of us are bound together. Each one of you are bound together. Whether you knew it or not, you've been millionaires from the day you were born. Ohr Somayach just wants to give you the key to the safe deposit box.